Silver has always carried an undeniable power, glimmering wealth, stability, and influence across every era of human history. But few stories are as astonishing as the vast reserves of this precious metal that weren't mined or traded, but taken. Hidden wartime treasures, stolen in secrecy and scattered across the world, continue to cast long shadows on modern economics. Among these mysteries, the massive silver seizures carried out by Imperial Japan during World War II stand out. An operation so vast that its missing fortunes still spark debate among historians and economists alike. Could stolen silver from decades ago still shape today's market movements? It may sound like a myth, yet the scale of this plunder, its disappearance, and its lingering implications raise a compelling question about how the past quietly influences the value of one shimmering metal even now. During the fervent expansionist period of World War II, the Imperial Japanese Army implemented a systematic and brutal policy of resource extraction across its conquered territories in Southeast Asia. This was not haphazard looting, but a calculated and organized endeavor to finance a relentless war machine. Under the ominous codename Golden Lily, a secret organization, allegedly overseen by Emperor Hirohito's own brother, Prince Yasuhito Chichibu, was established with the sole purpose of accumulating vast amounts of wealth. The spoils of this operation were staggering, encompassing everything from gold bullion and precious jewels to cultural artifacts, and critically, immense quantities of silver. Banks, museums, private homes, and even religious buildings were stripped bare of their valuables in countries like China, Korea, Malaya, Singapore, Thailand, Burma, and the Dutch East Indies. The initial plan was to ship this plundered wealth back to Japan, bolstering its national treasury and funding its military ambitions. However, as the war progressed and American submarines began to dominate the Pacific shipping lanes, this became an increasingly perilous undertaking. Japanese transport ships laden with treasures became prime targets, and many met their watery graves, taking their precious cargo with them. Facing this escalating threat, the strategists behind Golden Lily devised a new, more audacious plan. Instead of risking shipment across vast oceans, the bulk of the accumulated loot, including tons of silver, would be consolidated and hidden closer to the operational theaters. The Philippines, a strategically vital archipelago, became the chosen dumping ground for this ill-gotten fortune. This decision transformed the islands into a sprawling, clandestine vault, with countless secret tunnels, caves, and underground complexes prepared to conceal the stolen riches. The sheer volume of wealth involved was staggering. Some estimates suggest the total worth of the war loot, including gold and silver, could have been up to $3 billion 1940s dollars, a sum equivalent to well over $100 billion in today's currency. The Philippines, already reeling from the brutal Japanese occupation, became the ultimate destination for much of the Golden Lily treasure. As the war intensified and the tide began to turn against Japan, the Imperial Army worked feverishly to conceal the massive hoards. Elaborate tunneling systems, sometimes hundreds of feet deep, were dug, often using forced labor from prisoners of war. These hidden chambers were not merely storage facilities. They were designed to be impenetrable, frequently booby-trapped with explosives and poisonous gas to deter any future discovery. Among the most well-documented incidents of silver management during this chaotic period involves the Philippine Treasury. In 1942, as the fall of Corregidor to Japanese forces became inevitable, American and Filipino officials faced a dire choice. With no way to evacuate the remaining national assets, they decided to prevent the vast store of silver pesos from falling into enemy hands. Approximately 17 million silver pesos, representing a significant portion of the Philippine treasury, were deliberately dumped into the deep waters of Manila Bay, near Cabalo Bay, just before the final surrender. This massive act of denial presented a unique challenge to the Japanese. After occupying the Philippines, they learned about the sunken treasure and quickly sought to recover it. Japanese forces conscripted Filipino laborers and, later, even American prisoners of war, forcing them into perilous diving operations to retrieve the silver from the seabed, some 120 feet below the surface. However, the captured American divers, risking their lives under harsh conditions and constant Japanese supervision, engaged in covert acts of sabotage. They would secretly cut open bags of silver coins, making them impossible to bring to the surface, and even smuggled some of the recovered pesos to friendly Filipinos, who then used the silver to bribe guards for food and medicine for other prisoners. These efforts significantly hampered Japanese recovery, with reports indicating they only managed to salvage a fraction of the dumped silver, perhaps around 2 million pesos, before ceasing operations for unknown reasons in November 1942. The sheer audacity of dumping such a vast amount of national wealth and the desperate attempts to both recover and sabotage its recovery underscore the strategic importance of silver during wartime. This incident, while a singular event, reflects the broader struggle for control over precious metals that characterized the entire conflict in the Pacific. The story of the silver Japan stole isn't just about what was taken, but also about what remains hidden. The Yamashita's gold legend, often focusing on gold, also encompasses vast quantities of silver and other valuables supposedly buried across the Philippines. General Tomoyuki Yamashita, the Tiger of Malaya, who commanded Japanese forces in the Philippines towards the end of the war, is inextricably linked to this buried treasure. The mystery surrounding these alleged caches has fueled treasure hunts for decades, with many believing that countless tons of precious metals still lie concealed. While the existence of Yamashita's gold is often debated by experts, with some dismissing it as a myth, there is compelling evidence of systematic looting and concealment by the Japanese. The sheer scale of the Golden Lily operation, which targeted treasures across 12 East and Southeast Asian countries, suggests that an enormous amount of wealth was indeed accumulated. Regardless of whether specific caches are ever definitively located, the mere possibility of such a massive, undocumented supply of silver represents a ghost within the global precious metals market. This is silver that was physically removed from official circulation and reporting during a period of immense global upheaval. It is not tracked by modern mining reports, nor is it part of recognized government stockpiles or industrial inventories. The legendary Filipino locksmith Rogelio Roxas claimed in 1971 to have discovered one of Yamashita's treasure hoards, including gold bars and a solid gold Buddha statue filled with uncut diamonds. This discovery and the subsequent legal battles with former Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos, who allegedly confiscated the treasure, further cemented the legend's credibility in the public imagination, highlighting that such discoveries, even if disputed, are not entirely without precedent. This hidden wealth, whether it exists as specific buried hoards or represents a general unknown quantity of silver that never re-entered formal markets post-war, creates a unique economic dynamic. It is an unseen supply, a massive potential overhang that could, in theory, disrupt markets if a significant portion were ever to be recovered and monetized. Fast forward to today, and the silver market is a vibrant, complex arena driven by a unique combination of factors. Silver has a dual nature. It is both a traditional safe haven asset, much like gold, sought after during times of economic uncertainty and geopolitical tension, and a critical industrial metal indispensable to modern technology. Industrial demand for silver has seen remarkable growth in recent years, becoming a significant driver of its price. It is an essential component in the rapidly expanding clean energy sector, particularly in solar photovoltaic cells, where its superior electrical conductivity is crucial. The global push towards renewable energy means that solar installations continue to set new records, consuming ever-increasing quantities of silver. Beyond solar, silver is vital for electric vehicles, 5G networks, semiconductors, medical devices, robotics, and advanced electronics. Approximately half of all silver usage now comes from industrial applications, making its price highly sensitive to global manufacturing activity and technological advancements. On the supply side, the picture is one of increasing constraint. Global mine output has largely plateaued, with major producing countries facing challenges such as lower ore grades, labor disruptions, and rising energy costs. Environmental permitting challenges and underinvestment in new mines further exacerbate the problem, making it difficult for supply to keep pace with soaring demand. Recycling helps, but it is not enough to close the widening gap between consumption and new production. This structural deficit has become a key foundation for silver's recent price surges, creating conditions where even modest increases in demand can have an outsized impact on its value. Indeed, silver prices have recently reached historic highs, even breaking above $60 an ounce in late 2025, driven by this powerful combination of tightening supply and accelerating demand. So, how does the silver that Japan stole almost a century ago affect today's prices? The connection is not a direct, day-to-day trade influence, but a nuanced, underlying factor that shapes market perception and potential future supply. Firstly, the very existence of a massive, unquantified amount of silver, potentially hidden outside conventional market flows, introduces a speculative element. This ghost supply represents an unknown variable in global inventories. If even a fraction of the alleged Yamashita treasure, including its silver component, were ever truly recovered and then quietly or suddenly introduced to the market, it would represent a significant, untracked supply shock. In a market already experiencing structural deficits and price sensitivity due to high industrial demand and constrained mining output, such an event could cause considerable turbulence. It would challenge the current supply-demand models that influence pricing, forcing a re-evaluation of available silver. Secondly, the historical precedent of massive wartime looting and the subsequent disappearance of such wealth underscore the fragility of traditional supply chains and the potential for precious metals to be sequestered from global commerce for extended periods. While during WW2, governments controlled silver prices for strategic purposes, the removal of such a large quantity of physical silver from the global economy, even if it wasn't actively traded, still meant it wasn't available for legitimate industrial or investment use. This historical disruption, while not directly responsible for today's specific price points, contributes to the broader narrative of silver's unpredictable supply dynamics, a narrative that is particularly potent for war economy lovers who understand how conflict reshapes markets. Moreover, the allure of hidden treasures and the historical accounts of nations accumulating and losing vast fortunes feeds into the psychological aspect of precious metals investment. Silver, like gold, is often seen as a hedge against systemic risk and geopolitical instability. The knowledge that such enormous sums of wealth were once acquired through force and subsequently disappeared reinforces the idea that true wealth can be hidden, moved, and is vulnerable to global events. This perception influences investment decisions, particularly among those who view precious metals as a safeguard against future uncertainties, whether economic or geopolitical. Ultimately, the silver Japan stole, much of which remains lost, adds a layer of historical intrigue and potential uncertainty to a market already characterized by tight supply and surging demand. It serves as a powerful reminder that not all wealth is accounted for, and that the echoes of past conflicts can indeed cast long shadows on the present value of the world's most enduring treasures. The story of the silver Japan stole during World War II is a narrative of ambition, plunder, and a vast disappearance of wealth. From the systematic Golden Lily operation to the desperate acts of dumping the Philippine treasury into Manila Bay, the conflict dramatically reshaped the flow and availability of precious metals. While the direct daily impact on today's silver prices may not be immediately traceable, the legacy of this historical theft creates a significant, albeit phantom, supply that remains outside global market calculations. The mere possibility of its existence continues to influence market sentiment, adding a unique speculative dimension to a commodity already driven by rapidly increasing industrial demand and tightening supply. If the echoes of this stolen silver intrigue you, consider how major geopolitical events throughout history have shaped the very fabric of our economies. Understanding these historical forces can offer valuable insights into the complex world of precious metals and their enduring appeal.